Glad everyone is here today. Um, yes, thank you, Mark. And good morning to everyone. And before I begin, I wanted to just first acknowledge and express gratitude to my teachers, Jane and Peter Schneider. You may know them. And also acknowledge and thank Greg Fain, who was a teacher of mine for years and inspired me to start this talk and usually other talks the way he does. So, tip of the hat. And also, another part of that is I just want to just say that this talk is just to encourage you all in your practice. This is not so much a Dharma talk as it is just some poorly and slightly coherent expressed thoughts that I've had that well, anyways. So the theme of my talk today is on Dana Paramita, which is usually just expressed as the perfection of giving or perfection of generosity. But I also feel like it's the perfection of gratitude as well. And partly that's informed by this notion that gets chanted during Oryoki. And at Tassajara during practice period, Oryoki is a much more drawn out affair than when we do it at the Zen Center in Northridge. And there's multiple points at which we chant something. So the first thing we do, our bowls are all tied up, and I think we just put them in front of us and then stop. And before we untie the cloths and put them out, we chant, Buddha was born in Kapilavastu, enlightened in Magadha, taught in Varanasi, entered nirvana in Kushinagara. Now we set out Buddha's bowls. May we with all beings realize the emptiness of the three wheels, giver, receiver, and gift. So it's that last little bit that has stuck with me profoundly. The emptiness of the three wheels, giver, receiver, and gift. And that sort of ties into the this notion that I've got, which is that generosity and gratitude are two sides of the same coin. So before I continue, I just need to confess that the ideas for this talk started back in practice period as a gripe or a complaint against one of the other students there with me. This is sort of an example of what really grinds my gears. So maybe not ideal place for a talk to begin. So I wanted to let you know that and acknowledge that. But in any case, during practice period at Tassajara, there was this woman there who would offer me the door every time she was near a door that I was going into, even if I offered her the door first. If I walked up to a door that she was closer to, she would open it and offer me the first passage. If I was closer to the door and opened it and offered her the first passage, she would offer it right back to me. And the reason this bugged me was, the way I saw it, she was being greedy with generosity. She was taking away my opportunity to be generous. She wasn't appreciating that I was trying to give her a gift. She was too attached to being the giver and not the receiver. Now, I fully recognize and appreciate that I could only have been rubbed the wrong way by this because I too was attached to being the giver sometimes. And I do believe that her actions were from a pure place of generosity. And maybe it would have been better for me if I didn't ruminate on this story I had about her and offering the door, and instead just gave her the gift of always being the one to offer me the door. But then I would have had to talk about something else today, and I just don't have that many ideas. So the emptiness of the three wheels, giver, receiver, and gift, means not being attached to being the giver or the receiver. All components come together in a manifestation of gratitude and generosity, or gratitude generosity. They are two sides of the same coin. In basketball, if I remember correctly, I'm not much of a sports guy, there is a move you can do with a teammate called an alley-oop. I ended up looking this up on Wikipedia, actually, and their description is as follows. An alley-oop in basketball is an offensive play in which one player passes the ball near the basket to a teammate who jumps, catches the ball in midair, and then dunks it or lays it in before they touch the ground. So when I would offer the door, it's like I was the basketball player passing the ball to my teammate near the basket. And then if she accepted the offer and went through the door first, that would be like dunking the ball while in midair. Super cool. But when she instead offered the door right back to me, it would be like if the teammate by the basket, instead of putting the ball through the hoop, landed and then threw the ball back to the first player. Emptiness of giver, receiver, and gift means that the first teammate in the metaphor could represent the giver or the receiver, and the second teammate in the metaphor could also represent the giver or the receiver. The first teammate is giving the second one the opportunity to score a basket in a really cool way. The second teammate is giving the first teammate a gift by completing their part of the play, and the two of them together are giving a gift to the whole team by scoring points against their opponents. But none of that works unless one player throws the ball to their teammate and then the teammate puts the ball in the basket. So giver, receiver, and gift is like an alley-oop. It takes all three parts to make this wonderful thing, this Dharma moment of Dana Paramita. I think this is a great way that the various teachings in Buddhism not only reinforce each other, inform one another, feed into one another, but actually are just reflections or different manifestations of the most foundational understanding. When we practice the paramitas, there is a surface level pragmatic benefit. Generosity feels good. Endurance, motivation, and concentration are all good and helpful as we continue our Zazen specifically and our study of Buddhism in general. But the more we go into them, the more we can understand emptiness or impermanence, which is a core, maybe the core insight driving Buddhist theory and practice. Practicing the perfection of giving, Dana Paramita, means exploring what it means to be a giver and a receiver, to turn over gratitude and generosity and see their sameness. I give you something, you receive something. And the gift is not limited to the thing that's being given. The gift is the entire activity. We are both part of the gift. You give me something, I receive something. And when I receive the thing, I am giving you the thing. When I give you the thing, you are giving me the thing. The separation between I and you is immaterial, right? So, these are the three wheels. The emptiness of the three wheels means not seeing them as distinct and different. The emptiness of the three wheels means not seeing them as three wheels. The three wheels are one wheel, and this one wheel is Dana Paramita. When we understand this, we are also understanding emptiness. As long as we see the three wheels as distinct and different, we are not understanding emptiness. We see this further when we give someone something and they are not very gracious. I have seen this when I have received something and not been very gracious, or when I have received something and tried to be gracious and secretly been frustrated. In cases like that, we are giving and receiving in a self-centered way. I have done that a lot. I've been attached to my identity as a gift bestower and feeling jilted if the receiver didn't express the right gratitude, or been attached to my desires when someone gave me something I didn't really want, which is bad. There you go. In any case, both ways I suffer. Instead, if I give freely and then let the universe take over from there, or if I set aside my self centered notions and give my gratitude generously, that practice is instructive in understanding Buddhism and thus suffering less myself and creating less suffering in the world around me. When we really understand, it's the thought that counts. Just like it is what it is. And we're not just throwing the phrase away, but really appreciating the full extent of the meaning. We are on track to appreciate the role we are playing in the universe. Or rather, we are on track to appreciate the role the universe is playing in us. That's what I got. It was kind of short, but maybe Peter and Jane could supplement some of that with something better. Oh, Peter, your mic's muted.
I was just going to say, going to ask the question for you. Anybody have any questions or comments for Chris?
John?
Great talk. Thank you very much. I'm a big fan of the giving. And I just wanted to say to anyone that maybe wants to get into this quite a bit deeper, a number of years ago on Friday night reading, we did the Diamond Sutra. And the Diamond Sutra really surrounds dana and giving and is an entire lesson, I would say, in giving. And it's not long, and I would encourage people to look at it. There's a really good translation by Ed Pine that has a lot of good commentary. And there's also Greg Fain. I hope it's still online. Greg Fain used to have on the San Francisco Zen Center podcast their stuff. Anyways, there was a whole group of discussions he did on the Diamond Sutra, which were amazing as well. I wish I had the transcripts from Jane and Peter's lessons on Diamond Sutra when we did the readings, but I suggest anyways, Diamond Sutra, very good with regards to giving, and it's an amazing sutra. Not like the Lotus Sutra. The Lotus Sutra is strange. Diamond Sutra is solid.
Nice, thank you. When you said that you were a big fan of giving, and I was like, me too, it reminded me of a thing that a friend of mine shared with me. So I'm not sure how familiar you all are with the love languages, acts of service, words of affirmation. There's a few of them, and one of them is giving gifts. So what Shakur's idea was that doesn't apply just to people in a romantic relationship. That's also people in any relationship, even strangers or friends or family. So and she also noted that just to identify one love language as like my love language, that doesn't go far enough. There's more details. Like, I love to express love by giving people gifts, but it's very hard and uncomfortable for me to express love to someone else by receiving a gift that they're giving to me. So that's something I've had to work on. Is just in general, it's difficult. I've got this resistance to receiving things. Like, and I know this is pretty common, but I'm guilty of it too. When I was in high school theater, and some neighbors would come and see the play, they would always want to say, "Oh, you did such a great job, Chris. We loved you." And I would be like, "Oh, well, I forgot a line," or blah, blah, blah. And then one night my dad's just like, "Chris, quit being an asshole. Just say thank you." I was like, "Oh, right." And part of the thespian vows, one of those that you might know, that is to receive praise and criticism with grace. And grace is a cool thing. There's a whole thing about grace just being like lucky, but also it's just sort of graciousness, or to receive it with gratitude. So the idea that that we have different love languages when communicating, and different preferences on how to receive someone else's communication. That was a really cool idea, whether we're in a partnership or not. And it's been a thing of mine to work on since at least high school, and I'll probably be working on it for a while. No end in sight, but that's okay.
Anyone else?
It's totally cool if this is it.
I just wanted to say one more thing, if I could. I think that your talk is really at the heart of what Buddhism really is, because in the end, what we talk about is that underneath it all is this interdependence, that we're all, if not part of each other, cogs in each other's lives and so forth. And really at the heart of that, if you look at it, is giving and receiving. It's everyday actions that happen over and over and over again, whether it's in things as, rudimentary as commerce, buying and selling, or as charitable as what you've been talking about. But all of it is giving and receiving all the time. And that interdependence is so necessary to our lives. If you think about, if you didn't have giving and receiving between each other, really, what would you be left with? And I think it's a really important talk. So thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Well, all right, then let's get to the. Oh wait, Steve, are you raising his hand?
Steve's gonna come in there.
Yeah, I just wanted to say
give you
thank you,
something.
Chris.
Give you something. Yeah.
Yeah, leave the space to be given.
I just wanted to thank you, Chris, for your talk, especially the compliment thing, because I struggle with that one myself, and the just bottom line is thank you. It works, but I would like to believe it myself. And the gift part that I just lost my train of thought here. But anyway, a lot of things that you had mentioned about yourself and how things work, I can totally relate to it, and I appreciate hearing it from somebody else. So thank you.
Thank you, and you're welcome. And it helped, and it's just sort of like a life hack, so to speak, but not really a hack. It's actually the truth. When I realized that giving that gratitude is a gift in and of itself. Partially, like my dad, when my dad made his comment, and then eventually when I appreciated what he was trying to tell me, it's like to be grateful is a very important gift, and a very important component of a practice of dana paramita. So it is the perfection of gratitude every bit as much as it's the perfection of generosity. And those things are two, but one. Sorry, Mark?
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
I am? Okay. I just wanted to comment on that. Was a very interesting story you said about feeling like, in a way, you were jilted that you couldn't participate in this exchange that's a give and take that the world and universe has. And I think we get too caught up in our patterns. It's a habit. It's a habit that we tend to rely on as humans, but also that we become embedded in all these little habits. We don't even realize all these patterns we've come to be attached to. And sometimes it is just really, really difficult to be able to accept things, to actually take the moment to, and that's what the thespian grace is all about. And it's all about just being able to take a moment and release your habitual, I didn't deserve that. I just saw it as completely negative, to allow that to go and allow this exchange to happen and to allow the door person to always go last because somehow that's her habit. And I guess you're accepting things. It just really comes down to really accepting that life is full of surprises. And the more you think you know and the feel you have the rhythm going, it's always there to throw you off a little bit. And finding that equanimity to ride it to where it goes is kind of hard for humans. I find it hard for myself sometimes. So thank you for that.
You are very welcome. And what you said reminded me of a notion that I started looking up and then got distracted and forgot to look up further and maybe add to the talk. But Dogen's notion of giving people to themselves, basically just meeting people what they are, accepting them as they are, is giving that person who they are. I don't know, that didn't come out very well, but thanks for reminding me of that. Jane, I think I saw a hand.
Yeah, actually in my mind, I raised it, that was all. But I did appreciate your talk also, particularly about the compliment. It's much easier to just be gracious to someone who tells you, say, your painting looked very nice and you want to talk about it more or something, or say something about, well, there I made a mistake and there. But I think that's just pulling the spotlight back to yourself somehow. So it's much more easy to just be gracious about what people say. And I think that's part of what you're getting. But I'm still working on this one too. I think the perfections are among the hardest things there are to work on, because no matter how deep you go, you find another whole element of it at work underneath, and to have to work and change it and just be aware of it. Anyway, I think it's a very good talk, and thank you for it.
Thank you. And that was a great point. I've noticed that too, is it's a lot easier to just say thanks for the compliment and not push back on it. And I'm lazy, so that works out well. And there was something else. Oh, sorry. There was something else I was gonna.
When you say thank you and just let it at that, it's like giving everything back to the person.
Yeah.
Thanks, but it's like pulling from the person. In just a minute, I have some more to say. Yeah, I think it's just very hard to be brief and gracious.
I think your point about being self-centered when you deflect was worth circling back to as well. And the fact that any of these perfections, to practice them means, well, we have to live them, practice them in our lives, and our lives are always changing, and there's always something in front of us, which is the reason I don't like it better, but I do like the translation of the four immeasurable vows. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them, because an opportunity to practice dana paramita or any of them is like a dharma gate. And whether we are aware as we attempt to practice it, of it being the moment, the opportunity as an opportunity, or whether we're just living our life, that's entering the dharma gate, and that's practicing it. So we're practicing the precepts, the paramitas, we're practicing them all the time, even when we don't realize it. That's, I think, one of the annoyingly cool things about Zen practice. Just like you can never leave sesshin.
Yeah.
That's an anecdote I have heard multiple times. Matt?
Hi. You'll have to pardon me if I repeat some things someone else already said. I'm a bit sleepy, so my own experience with this, particularly in the last couple of years or so, has been that the gift has become secondary. But the giving and the receiving is the line between them is doesn't really exist for me. There's the giving is a receiving, and the receiving is a giving, and it's just there's just you can't separate the two in any meaningful way as long as the intention on both sides is I guess the intention on both sides is gratitude. So which I think leads the way through the interaction. I don't know if that makes sense, but
I think so.
I tried.
I think you're spot on. John?
Sorry, last thing, just a tip that I thought of that I use all the time, and it was really helpful. I picked up years ago. If someone were to give me a compliment and say like, "Oh, I like your shoes," or "I like this or that," or whatever, and oftentimes you'll just want to say, the reply is "thank you." But that, like what happened with you, Chris, with somebody complimenting you when you were a thespian, it kind of feels a little bit like you feel like you want to say something else, or maybe you want to give a compliment back, or do something there. So instead of saying just "thank you," oftentimes it's really nice to say "thank you, that made me really feel nice," or "that made me feel good," or "I really," that something along those lines in addition to just "thank you," because now you're just not leaving it empty and open, but rather you're giving something back. You're giving back an acknowledgement to that person other than just "thank you," but that was something nice to say that made me feel good. And for some reason, that just seems to feel better when you say it that way. I don't know why, but it's better, it seems, than just saying "thank you."
That makes sense. Well, I think it's uncomfortable to just receive something. Why that should be, I haven't even begun to unpack. But I have experienced it plenty of times. Yeah, maybe that's a vestige of our pull yourself up by the bootstraps culture, or maybe that's a more human thing and not thing, whatever. I don't know. But I wanted to send, oh yes, Peter, please.
Thank you for your talk. And I wanted to say that nothing is more natural than giving.
Mm.
And it's the reason, there's a reason why it's the first of the dana of the paramitas, because when you understand the nature of yourself, or when you don't understand it, but when it comes to you, the nature of yourself, you start it's when you first, for the first time, you recognize, or it's recognized for you, you might say, that everything in the world is good.
Mm.
And therefore it always, so giving always reminds me, as you all know this very well, and probably thought of it even now, is, when, the difference between the heaven and hell, the metaphor with the story. But the fact is, when you're in that situation, you are looking outside of yourself to the other person, and they equally are looking outside of themselves to the other person. So there's always an equal giving. And from the Bodhisattva point of view, um, the interdependence is not actually, you could almost might say interdependence almost, because then you are not dependent on yourself. So, but we always, the self is always something to look at. And we all kind of naturally say, no, 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 because we feel not ashamed, but we feel we feel that it has to do with our kind of natural feeling going on there, but it's a part of karma also. And so actually saying no shows the self. So when you're saying no, you can always remember that. It looks like you're being kind to the other person, but actually it's that no is actually a self no. That's what I want to say.
When you were talking about how giving is just so natural, it made me think of toddlers. Like the image I have is like a kid who's just barely able to walk, who's got their pacifier, their binky in their mouth, and they're just like playing with sand or something, or they just like maybe pick some Cheerios up at a bag, whatever it is, and they just kind of immediately like walk over, and it's like
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking about? I'm sure we've all been around toddlers, and like they just it it's so unencumbered. It's just the natural manifestation of generosity in one of the most simplest ways possible. Just doesn't even know what it is, doesn't matter what it is, doesn't know who you are, doesn't matter who you are. Toddler's just like, here, I have something, take it, this for you.
Yeah.
Rachel?
Thank you, Chris. I think it's kind of fun and surprising to just to teach oneself to be aware more in the long view, and the inconsistency and the surprise of what giving and not giving, how it really plays out in actual life. And by that, I mean, I really am still thrown off when I or someone else, observing someone else, be really thanked for a giving I scarcely noticed. In other words, that kind gesture was not the gift that someone else really appreciated. In other words, it was perhaps a much more inconsequential gesture I made. But my idea about what giving was, which is according to my definition, like if you're really quiet and notice, I mean, it just makes me laugh sometimes. You can do something that seems to be absolutely the right thing by 98% of the people in the room, but the person you've done it for, they're in the 2%, and they didn't take kindly to it. And really, I've had people thank me years later for something that I didn't even notice I had done. It was almost meaningless. And they come to me and they say, thank you. I've never forgotten that. And then, and it
Yeah.
notifies other people as well. And I only mean it takes an awfully long time for me to really grasp that I'll do it with my best intention and awareness, but that to just sit back and watch what it's like planting a plant. It's supposed to grow a certain way. Once we bought a lot of plants and they were supposed to flower because they'd been in another garden, but the nursery they were wrong and they weren't labeled right, and they never flowered and didn't have that wonderful scent. Well, I think of sometimes what I do say or don't do or say as being very similar to being the nursery person who slapped the label on. Anyway, thank you so much for your talk, because it really, awareness just continues to abundantly teach well after the first response. Thank you.
You're very welcome. I've had those moments too. Not many, but sometimes someone will just express this really profound gratitude for something that I'd done that I didn't really think about. And also, like you said, sometimes I'll do something with the best of intentions and a certainty that it will be received the way I imagined it would when the inspiration to do whatever it was arose, and it's not. And both of those experiences can be incredibly humbling, because I'm face to face with the reality that it's not all about me, and also I'm face to face with how limited my awareness and my knowledge is. There's so much that I don't know. It's almost infinite what I don't know. Phil?
So can you hear me okay?
Yes.
There is a writer I like named James Finley, and he offers an image I think that's appropriate here. He talks about imagining there's a child who wants a present very much, and he thinks that the present is too much to hope for. And the child's mother, knowing how much the child wants the present, gets it. And the day that she's to give him the present, she can hardly wait, because in her love for that child, she can hardly wait to see the delight in his eyes when he realizes that the present, too much to hope for, has been given. And handing the child the present, she watches the child unwrap the present, take the lid off the box. And at the moment the child sees that the present, again, too good to hope for, has been given, the moment his face lights up, we can say this about the mother: she's not there. She's lost in the child's face. Love does that to her. And yet when she reflects back on this moment, she doesn't reflect back on it as a moment of loss, but as a moment of pure gain. It's as if a curtain fleetingly opened, and she was allowed to glimpse what she knows is always true, that only love and all that is given in love is real.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Matt?
Yeah. Well, first, I want to apologize for a very important oversight. Thank you, Chris. It was, and just to let you know, it was such a good talk that it sparked this great discussion we're having, and so there you go.
That's one of the things I
Thank
like
you
about our
again.
Sangha is how many discoveries we make in the Q&A after a talk. When I was sort of giving the talk, I was a little bit worried that something authentic, I was suppressing something authentic in the performance of reading what I had written. And so I really appreciate that the Q&A kind of picked up, because it's a more organic conversation, and sometimes that can be a more comfortable exploration than when I'm trying to write something and then when I'm reading what I wrote. So we do have the full moon ceremony, and I wanted to get to that, but I wanted to cap this off by sharing a joke from a stand-up comedian that I really like, who unfortunately has entered paranirvana. His name is Mitch Hedberg, and it goes as follows. Whenever I go out to eat with a friend and the friend offers to pay, I immediately reach for my wallet because inside I've written a note that says, "Say thanks." So thank you very much all for your kind attention. Please take very good care of yourselves.